Today we're going to talk about the ridiculous price action that we have been seeing in the cryptocurrency market and my thoughts on where you should place your money if you want to be careful versus if you want to be aggressive. But I think generally here the best place to place your money right now is Bitcoin. A lot of people are touting that this is going to be the year for altcoins. People are going to move into altcoins. This is going to increase cryptocurrency adoption. Everybody is tired of Bitcoin's slow transaction times and high fees. We're going to see at least one cryptocurrency take over Bitcoin. This dominance figure is going to drop to 25% or lower in the long term, maybe even as low as 10% as second and third generation cryptocurrencies take over. What I think is really going to happen here, number one, what I realize a lot of people are doing now is that with a lot of these different cryptocurrencies, often there's three catalysts that always sends an altcoin pumping now. Number one is new partnerships. It doesn't matter how big or small the company is that they're partnering with, doesn't matter how relevant it is to the cryptocurrency at hand. As long as it's a partnership with an existing corporation, everybody sees that as a mass increase in adoption and a reason to see double-digit gains in a day, which it's not, especially once we get into cryptocurrencies that are as large as these top 10 cryptocurrencies, which now if you want to be in the top 10, you have to have at least $10 billion worth of market cap. That's insanity. What we're going to see here is as more partnerships get announced, more and more capital will flow into those cryptocurrencies. In addition to that, a second catalyst that I always see now, this has been a catalyst for quite some time, but because the entire altcoin market is becoming very bubbly, anytime that a cryptocurrency gets listed on a new exchange, that's a reason for a massive pump. And a third reason that we see cryptocurrencies pump is because either one, they are going to do an airdrop or a fork or some type of event that makes it so that there's a snapshot at which point you want to hold that cryptocurrency, or B, they do a supply burn. These three catalysts, I guess four if you really want to count those last two as separate, those four catalysts tend to drive most pumps. And there's a couple of others that are out there too. Rebranding is another one that we don't see a ton in the top cryptocurrencies, but once you get down here in some of these lower cryptocurrencies, sometimes rebranding can be a big catalyst that drives pumps. But just in general here, we're seeing across the board that any little news event that happens, we see a cryptocurrency pump. And this is a very huge sign that we are maybe not reaching the peak of an altcoin bubble, but it's starting to get there. It really is. So my opinion right now on this market is that Bitcoin is a much superior position to every single other altcoin with very few exceptions, okay? Now, I still think you should be invested in altcoins just for the diversification effect and individual exposure. There are times like in the stock market where it's better to be very high allocation into stocks as opposed into bonds, right? But there might be certain issues of bonds that are greatly mispriced, which you'll still buy. Well, that's how I feel about the altcoin market right now. It is much better to be in Bitcoin, but you can make exceptions for certain cryptocurrencies based off of catalysts that you see coming up, based off of how you feel about the cryptocurrency in particular, so on and so forth. But in general here, if you have been heavily weighted into altcoins, either because you're an altcoin maximalist or because you simply have held on to altcoins since October and they're finally starting to pump now, regardless of the reason that it is now a substantial portion of your portfolio, I would start putting more and more money into Bitcoin. And here's why. A lot of this money, now a lot of people talk about the fact that the cryptocurrency market cap is all the way up at $750 billion. And we all know that because of low float, it's not really $750 billion. In other words, there's a lot of valuation within these cryptocurrencies that is just the result of the fact that they have low liquidity, which results in prices that are far beyond what their market cap is. However, we can't ignore the fact that we have added, even if it's not exactly 100 to 150 billion dollars worth of valuation over the past couple of days, it's a substantial amount of valuation regardless of how much the true amount is, so to speak. When we look at pumps of this nature, there is more capital coming into the market, and it's all coming through the gateway drug of Bitcoin. But then it simply instantly moves into other cryptocurrencies. My brothers, for example, are investing in Ripple. They have to buy into Bitcoin first, and then they buy into Ripple. So there's a lot of people that are buying Bitcoin just to get into these other cryptocurrencies. What I suspect is going to happen at some point here, and it may not be this month, it may not be next month, because I was the guy who was bullish on altcoins back in October when they got slaughtered for 2 months straight. And everybody was saying altcoins will never come back. It's finally the time for Bitcoin to retake its dominance to the very top. I kept saying that altcoins were an attractive buy while everybody was distracted with the hard forks in Bitcoin, with Bitcoin Gold and SegWit 2x. I was saying to buy altcoins. Now I'm going to do the opposite here. Now we're going to talk about why you should buy Bitcoin. Number one is because everybody has exposure to it when they buy Bitcoin and then move it into altcoins. What we're going to see at some point here, I don't know when, we're going to see a huge collapse in the altcoin market. Everybody's going to panic and they're going to flood that money into Bitcoin. And what's going to cause an event like this to happen, there's a couple of different things that can. Number one is a huge hard fork. If Bitcoin all of a sudden a huge team develops a hard fork that gets a ton of marketing hype and everybody's actually excited for it, even if it's not exactly like Bitcoin Cash scale, but if it's something like Bitcoin Gold, that's all that's required. Remember that my third catalyst that I listed for most cryptocurrencies pumping is when we see something like this happen, where basically there's an incentive to hold a cryptocurrency at a certain snapshot, at a certain block. Well, if we see Bitcoin do something like that, you can bet that it will pump and there will be a lot of capital that moves into Bitcoin. Now, it does have to be a big hard fork because there's plenty of hard forks that are happening that are inconsequential. However, if we do see a large one, we're probably going to see a bunch of capital move into it. That's the first thing. The second thing is if we start to see the Lightning Network get more and more deployed, obviously it doesn't deploy all at once because it's open source, but once we start to see the Lightning Network adoption increase and become more usable on the mainnet, and we really start seeing a lot more people talk about that, I guarantee you, regardless of whether or not it fixes Bitcoin's problems, a lot of people are going to jump back into Bitcoin. And then the third and final thing is more financial instruments based off of Bitcoin. So a lot of you are aware of the fact that it's difficult for Wall Street to directly own Bitcoin right now. In fact, a lot of companies are simply not allowed to do that. Their prospectus doesn't allow it, or regulations don't allow it, so on and so forth. What we're going to see, I think, in 2018 is at least some catalyst associated with people trying to get more financial instruments that are based off of Bitcoin. Now, that's a longer term catalyst. That's not, the biggest one that can potentially happen is an ETF, and that may not even happen this year. But as long as there's buzz about it, right? If all of a sudden everybody's talking about it, like they were talking about futures, if everybody starts talking about it, it doesn't even matter how quickly it's going to happen, as long as there's buzz around it. I mean, think about Bitcoin back in March of last year. All that's important to realize is that if buzz starts happening for this sort of thing, people are going to move from altcoins into Bitcoin. Until then, we may continue to see pumps like we're seeing right now that make absolutely zero sense. I mean, think about it. Cardano, everybody's mentioning they have no working product. Really cool team, really cool in a lot of different ways that they're going a different route. But come on, there's no product at all. Should it be worth $32 billion? I mean, let's ask that differently. Would you ever, compare it to companies that are $32 billion? And I know what everybody's going to say. You can't compare a new asset class to companies. That's completely false. All right. The way any of these cryptocurrencies should be priced is based off of the utility that they provide the world. The same way that companies are priced, the same way that commodities are priced. Now, it's very difficult to calculate the intrinsic value of a cryptocurrency, unlike a company, but like a commodity. However, they should all be based on some sort of reality. You know, the one exception is gold, which I guess you could argue maybe that's what Bitcoin is. We'll talk about that in the future here. I don't think that's necessarily true either, but most commodities are valued based off of at least some amount of industrial use, right? So what I want everybody to realize when it comes to the pricing that we see or the valuations that we see for some of these cryptocurrencies, you really should try to gauge it against what are some other things that are valued at this amount, and does this even value, or does this even provide anywhere close to that amount of value? And I'm going to tell you that the answer is no for every single cryptocurrency, basically. I'd be very hard pressed to find an exception. All right, that includes Bitcoin, Ripple, Ethereum, Bitcoin Cash, Cardano, NEM, Stellar, Tron, Litecoin, IOTA, all of them. That's the truth. All right. But in terms of trading, in terms of speculation, in terms of investing, in terms of the emotions of the market, I think we're going to see a big catalyst at some point in the future. I don't know what it is, but I do know if they announce a hard fork, or if they announce the Lightning Network development increasing, or if we see a financial instrument that comes out of nowhere that everybody has high hopes for, that's all it's going to take for all of the capital in this market to flood into Bitcoin. Now, the last thing I want to do here, I wish I said this earlier in the video, is I want to give my prediction for what's going to happen over the next 6 months or so. And that is one of two things, okay? One of two things is going to happen here. Either one, right now the market is very frothy. Either one, the entire market declines. And when the entire market declines, Bitcoin dominance is going to increase, because even though a lot of people are cashing out of Bitcoin, even more people are cashing out of altcoins into Bitcoin and then not cashing out to cash, right? So that's the first possibility. The second possibility is we see one of those three catalysts that I mentioned earlier, and a ton of people move from their altcoins into Bitcoin. This dominance figure is going to increase, and we're going to see Bitcoin skyrocket to 30,000, 40,000, 50,000, some ridiculous number that nobody anticipated, and it's going to surprise everybody. So basically, I'm trying to say either the market's going to go up or it's going to go down, but the one valuable insight that I can provide is that this dominance figure is most certainly going to skyrocket at some point in the future. And I don't want you to be burned. You certainly shouldn't be over 75% altcoins right now. You certainly should not be over 75% altcoins right now. That's far too risky. So those are my thoughts on the market. Obviously, people are going to have different opinions. I know a lot of people think that Bitcoin is not going to sustain its value and altcoins are going to take over the market. I disagree with that, but let's see what happens over the next 6 months or so. As usual, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Make sure that you check out my Steemit if you want to interact with me, because I can keep up with the comments here. It's a lot fewer than most of my other YouTube videos. I get hundreds, sometimes even thousands of comments. It's also accessible for you guys. You can see my responses to people all in one location. And then there's a monetary incentive for me to post on there, as well as you. If you post a comment that other people like, actually, let me show you a really good example of that, because obviously this was my very controversial video. You can see here that the first response to this comment, if it loads, here you can see that a lot of people like this comment, so this person made even more money on his post than the actual content of the video itself and the article, which is a good point, because this post was more valuable than my post. So if you want to contribute something and a lot of people like it, then make sure that you check it out. This is obviously an exception. It almost all came from one account, but just wanted to point that out. Anyway, make sure that you check out my Steemit if you're interested. There's a link in the description as well as in the pinned comment below. Otherwise, leave a like, comment, and subscription, and I will get back to you as soon as possible. Thank you for watching.